Today's number 4 most urgent vulnerability on the Daily Ranked CVE Brief is CVE 2026-58644, a critical Microsoft SharePoint Server flaw with a 9.8 CVSS score and a spot on CISA's Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog. That combination matters because our ranking is not just about theoretical severity. This channel is about what to patch first, ranked by real exploitation signal, CISA KEV, first step S's, and CVSS. The short version is this. Microsoft's description says an unauthorized attacker can execute code over a network through deserialization of untrusted data in Microsoft Office SharePoint. If SharePoint is part of your environment, especially if it is reachable by users over the network, this belongs near the top of today's defensive queue. Let's translate the vulnerability. The affected product is Microsoft SharePoint Server, and the weakness category is CVE-2026-58644, deserialization of untrusted data. Serialization is a normal software process where structured information is packaged so an application can store it or move it around. Deserialization is the reverse. The application reads that packaged data and turns it back into live objects it can use. The danger comes when an application accepts data it should not fully trust, then processes it in a way that can influence code behavior. In this case, the official NVD description says, deserialization of untrusted data in Microsoft Office SharePoint allows an unauthorized attacker to execute code over a network. That is the core issue: unauthenticated network-reachable code execution in a collaboration platform many organizations treat as central infrastructure. Verdict: this is a patch now remote code execution vulnerability because it is network-reachable and does not require authentication. Those are the two CVSS signals to focus on. First, the attack vector is network, meaning the vulnerable condition can be reached remotely rather than requiring local access to the server. Second, privileges required is none, and user interaction is none, which means the attacker does not need a valid account and does not need to trick a user into clicking something for the vulnerability to matter. The full score is CVSS 9.8, critical, with high impact to confidentiality, integrity, and availability if exploitation succeeds. In plain terms, the scoring says this can move from exposed service to serious server-side compromise without the usual barriers defenders rely on. The reason this lands at number 4 today is not just the 9.8 score. CISA lists CVE 2026-58644 in the Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog. That is a major escalation signal for defenders, because KEV means the vulnerability is known to have been exploited, not merely discussed or scored as severe. The EPSS percentile provided here is 0.70792, which places it around the 70.8 percentile in the EPSS ranking context. EPSS is not a guarantee that your specific server is being targeted, and it is not a replacement for asset context. But when KEV is true, the practical question changes. You are no longer asking, could someone exploit this someday? You are asking, where is this present in my environment, and how fast can we reduce exposure? Conceptually, the attack path is straightforward, which is part of why this is dangerous. SharePoint is designed to receive and process network traffic from users, services, and integrations. A deserialization flaw becomes reachable when untrusted data crosses into a part of the application that rebuilds that data into objects without enough safety controls. Because the CVSS vector says attack complexity is low, no privileges are required, and no user interaction is required, defenders should assume the risky condition may be triggered through normal network-facing application behavior rather than through a complicated chain. We are not going into payloads, endpoints, or proof-of-concept steps. The defensive takeaway is enough. If a vulnerable SharePoint server can be reached over the network, an unauthorized attacker may have a path to code execution. To check exposure, start with inventory, not assumptions. Identify every Microsoft SharePoint Server instance you operate, including production, staging, disaster recovery, and older systems that may still be reachable internally. Then compare those systems against the official Microsoft advisory for CVE 2026-58644 to confirm exact affected versions and remediation requirements. Do not invent version logic from memory, and do not rely only on a hostname list. Verify through your asset management, configuration management, patch management, and server ownership records. Next, map reachability. Which SharePoint servers are exposed to the internet? which are reachable from partner networks, VPN users, or broad internal segments. Internal only does not mean low risk, especially for a no authentication network vulnerability. The highest priority is any vulnerable SharePoint server that is both unpatched and broadly reachable. The remediation plan should be simple and disciplined. First, follow Microsoft's official guidance for CVE 2026-58644 and apply the relevant updates or mitigations for your SharePoint server environment. Prioritize internet-facing and broadly reachable servers first. Then, move through internal systems based on business criticality and exposure. Second, reduce unnecessary network access while patching is underway. If a SharePoint server does not need to be reachable from a given segment, limit that path. Third, validate remediation rather than assuming a maintenance window solved it. Confirm patch status through your normal tooling and document any exceptions with owners and timelines. Finally, treat this as an incident prevention sprint. Back up before changes, coordinate with SharePoint owners, watch for abnormal behavior, and do not leave partially remediated servers in a forgotten state. For detection and monitoring, focus on deviations from normal SharePoint server behavior. Review web and application logs for unusual request patterns, unexpected bursts of errors, or traffic from sources that do not normally interact with the server. Watch authentication and access patterns too, even though the vulnerability is described as unauthorized, because follow-on activity may involve account use or administrative changes. On the host side, monitor for suspicious process creation from SharePoint-related services, unexpected command execution, new or modified files in unusual locations, and outbound connections that do not match the server's normal role. Also look for service crashes or availability disruptions that line up with suspicious traffic. None of these signals alone proves exploitation, but together they help defenders triage. The key is baseline. Know what normal SharePoint activity looks like before you decide what is abnormal. Bottom line, CVE 2026-58644 is today's number 4 priority because it combines 3 things defenders should not ignore: Microsoft SharePoint Server, remote unauthenticated code execution, and CISA Known Exploited Vulnerabilities status. The weakness is CVE-502, deserialization of untrusted data, which means unsafe handling of incoming data can become a path to code execution. The action items are clear. Identify your SharePoint servers. Verify affected status through Microsoft's advisory. Patch or mitigate according to official guidance. Reduce exposure while work is underway, and monitor for abnormal server behavior. This is the Daily Ranked CVE Brief, what to patch first, ranked by real exploitation signal every day. Subscribe for the next ranked breakdown, and check the description for the full ranked CVE report.